Um, Welcome everyone to our, I believe it's our sixth AMSA GBM. I feel like we've done a lot more. Yeah, welcome back for another week.
The Monday
sorry.
the Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture has MO 456 on Friday, right?
I believe it does, yeah.
We don't have any problems.
No problems. Okay, so we will be recording this meeting. So if you prefer not to be seen, you may turn your camera off. But if there is a Q&A session or any interaction with the speaker, we do encourage you guys to turn on your camera to help facilitate that face-to-face, quote-unquote face-to-face interaction. A couple of announcements. We have our medical student mix and mingle coming up. I forgot to put the date in there, but that is October 28th. For those of you guys who haven't been to AMSA before and may not know what that is, our medical student mix and mingle is essentially we invite a couple med students to come to AMSA. Currently, we have 6 confirmed. There will be a lot more. And it'll be sort of a speed dating format where you guys are going to be put into breakout rooms with one medical student, and then we'll kind of rotate every 10 minutes or so, and they're going to give you their experience, their advice, their tips on the MCAT, you know, their advice on finding research or stuff to pay attention to in the application or tips for an interview. This advice is so important because it's from people who were sitting in the same seats that you guys did, figuratively, in the classrooms if we were there. But they've been in your shoes. They understand the stresses, the anxieties, the uncertainties, and these are people who have made it to med school and have succeeded in making that jump between undergrad and med school. So we highly encourage you guys to come to that. It's going to be a great time. We have a couple of Loyola alum, some friends of ours, mentors of ours. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thomas, you want to talk about Loyolathon?
Sure, absolutely. This guy's, for those of you who don't know, Loyolathon's a pretty big event here at Loyola, and certainly an outside event that we always make sure to plug every year. We had an actual e-board member from Loyolathon come in, 2 meetings ago, and plug the event. Basically, this is an event that's happening this semester. It's actually taking place in March, but we just went ahead and started a team for it. And we just wanted to get that information out as soon as possible because, I mean, last year we were the top raising team at Loyola. So, I mean, you know, woo indeed, because, you know, y'all are just the sickest community out there. So wanted to make sure to mention that. I didn't see it in the email for this week. We'll make sure to include that for an email for next week if you guys want to go ahead and start signing up for that and start fundraising. And here's Amir, as always, with the t-shirts.
Yeah, so we are still running our t-shirt contest through Custom Ink. So we would love it if you guys could get on there and, you know, make your own designs, be as creative as you want. And we'd love to see what you guys come up with. The winner is going to receive a $20 gift card as well as a free t-shirt. And there's also a poll, I believe, in their email about the t-shirt interest form, just seeing how many of you guys can come out and pick them up. But yeah, let's see what you guys got up for designs.
So if any of you guys want to talk about your pre-med journey as an undergrad and what things have helped you during this process and what things haven't helped you, you can be featured on our Instagram story. And if you would like to, you can email us at amsaloyola at LUC?
At Gmail.
At gmail.com. Yeah.
Bigs and littles were announced last week, so your bigs should be getting back to you and reaching out sometime this week if they haven't already. So be on the lookout for that. And if you really wanted a big, but you missed out on it, you could always email us, and we'd be happy to try and pair you up with someone. Again, we'll try our best. Right?
Cool. You guys are probably wondering what that, oh, sorry, I clicked the slide. You guys are probably wondering what that big QR code is in the middle over there. So Princeton Review has been sending us some information about their discounts for AMSA members. If you'd like to receive those discounts for Princeton material or be entered for the raffles that they usually bring with Princeton MCAT books and stuff, we advise you to check out the QR code and put in your LUC email for in the spreadsheet so they can verify who is like officially an AMSA member and who isn't. Obviously, our guidelines are a bit more lenient because of the whole COVID situation, but in order for the discount to apply, they kind of need some sort of a verification of who's actually an AMSA and who's like not really a Loyola student. But please do fill that out. We'll be having the poll, the QR code again at the end of the slideshow.
All right, and now without further ado, that is a typo on the screen, by the way. It is not Dr. Kevin Kaufmann, although he is just as important to merit such a title. Please, in your virtual environments, please give him a round of applause. This is Dr. Kaufmann.
Thank you. Yes, I am not a double doctor. I am just a doctor of history. So not, as I like to tell people, not anything that can actually help you, but I have been known to help people improve at Jeopardy. So that seems to help. I am here and I am grateful to be here. This is a close slice to normal. It's not completely normal. I would love to be in the Life Science Building, room 142, with you all, as we usually do this kind of thing, but unfortunately that's not happening. And this is the next best thing, but I'm glad to be here and talking to you all. The other thing about the earlier discussion of comments and whatnot being made during Zoom meetings, one of my students in the class I teach on Thursday evenings, their roommate constantly walks back and forth. Like, I think we've just gotten to the point where, yeah, the camera's on, who cares? I mean, it used to be like, oh, don't look at this, and nah. 7 months in, I think we've all decided that the camera's just a part of our life now. So anyway, to talk about research for just a minute, and why you should consider doing it. Well, you are all here because you are future medical students. That's the plan. And research does look good as part of your application to medical school. There's no way to say that differently. I would, just so you know, that is it possible to get into med school without doing research? Absolutely. It is not a requirement by most med schools. There are some that would really like to see it, and it does depend on the schools that you look to apply to. For instance, Loyola's own medical school, even though a lot of the people who are there do research, it's in the 80th percentile, if I'm not mistaken, that did research in undergrad. That's kind of low by sort of a med school standard as far as application standards and whatnot. Depending on the schools that you look at and apply to, you can find out who has more research as part of their background and who doesn't. You could probably guess, like around here and locally in Chicago, schools like Northwestern, U of C have a greater preponderance of researchers than the other schools. Again, it's not a hard and fast rule, but just something to keep in mind too, because there's some people, you just don't want to do it, and that's okay too. But I don't think anyone would ever say to you, at least I hope not, oh, don't do research, that's bad for your application. And that goes for anything. It's really, if you decide somewhere along the lines here that med school isn't what you really want to do, then research isn't going to be something that you wasted your time on. Research is been found to be a very influential, impactful experience for students, that students have a more likelihood of graduating if they've done undergraduate research, if they have a better chance in job interviews and grad schools with research in their background. So it's a good experience. And that is really, I think, the key to it all is, from the Center for Experiential Learning, so I probably should plug that just a tiny bit, in that it is great experience. The number one comment at the end of the year, every year, that we get, at least regarding research, is it was great to to apply stuff that you've learned in the classroom to real work, because there are classes in research here at Loyola, and some of you probably are either planning on taking them or will take them. But to really get into the experience, you'll want to do research in someone's lab, and that is not part of a class. It is a volunteer position, but you are expected to do a certain amount of work, especially in the biology labs. You are, generally speaking, expected to do somewhere between 10, 15 hours of work each week. Some labs want to see a little bit more than that. Someday we will have a discussion with those instructors about what our best practice is for people who are sometimes juggling classes, a job, commute, a general life that maybe requiring 20 hours out of a student researcher is not quite fair, but that's a whole other discussion. So I'm going to just show you a few things to help you if you haven't done some of this stuff already. I hope this helps, and if you've done it already, share with your colleagues that the one thing about all of this stuff is, I would say it's not terribly difficult, especially most of you, if you are biochem, all the bios majors. Some of the stuff I'm going to show you is fairly, I would say, very easy as far as things that you can do as far as research. The number one thing is basically, okay, so how do you get into somebody's research lab? That is a great question. There are people kind of sitting among you that are already doing it. You do not have to have a fellowship in order to do it. I'll talk a little bit about that process later. But the number one thing you have to do is let faculty know that you're available. The biology department has made that a little easier and harder at the same time. And I'll go ahead and show you that right now. If you have not done so already, you'll want to go to the biology website, which is now here on your screens, and go to research. And now where is there it is, Department of Research undergraduate, Department of Biology undergraduate research application portal. And you click on that, and it is a fairly simple application process. You log in with your university ID and your university password. I won't bother to do that. So I wonder what happens when I do that. I've never done this. But there you go. It gives you a really basic form here to fill out, 250 words for 3, 4, yeesh. But fairly short essays in order to answer. The other key part that I want to show you, though, is if we go back, because it says here, select faculty. Now, everybody doing research in Loyola's biology department is listed here, and you can click up to 3, which is great. So they will get a ping that they have been listed as somebody's choice, which is great. Now, let me see. Hopefully I can go back easily. Can I? Yes, awesome. So if you go back to the Department of Biology and just start fresh again, you could go to About Us and Faculty Research. It's also here under Research, Faculty Research Labs at LUC. Let's go this way. And this is where you find out what faculty might you want to work with. Well, as you scroll through this list, everybody who is highlighted is doing research at Loyola at this time, including some adjunct faculty, but if looking at these names, they're all in different departments, so they're not quite adjunct. Not like me, like when I teach in history. I'm just some random hired guy who pops in every once in a while. That's not, for instance, Ann Grauer, she's been with Loyola pretty much with the furniture, which is great, but I guess you could start saying that about me too. Anyway, so you look through this, and this description isn't very helpful. Area of research, aquatic ecology. I'm no scientist. I've already copped to that a couple of times, but I'm going to say aquatic ecology is really big. However, if you click on Dr. Berg's stuff, now you start to get the description of what he really has done. And I'm not going to read through that all. You guys can do it sometime. But what you should do, if after reading this you think, okay, maybe pick up one of these publications. These are a little bit on the dated side. No offense, Dr. Berg, but just saying. I guess you got tenure. Anyway, so go through and click on one of these. All of them are available. If we were to go to another faculty member, for instance, Michael Burns, he is a favorite of the Center for Experiential Learning. He is a really cool guy. He has a link there, right there, for more info about the lab. You can find out more of what he does there. But now here we go, 2016, 2015. He is doing quite a bit. He has a lot of students working with him at any given time. It's he's interesting to take a look at. And again, maybe this isn't what you want to do. One thing I would say, future doctors that I'm addressing, you're not going to find much medical research going on at Loyola's biology department. Number one reason, they're not medical doctors. They, some of them will out and out tell you, I don't care about medicine, which is kind of makes sense. They are scientists, and this is what they like to do. Now, some of them will have some stuff that does work with the human body and things of that nature, but not very many. There are a lot of fish and a lot of insects that get research done on them at Loyola. That's okay. I know a lot of times freshmen come in and will come into my office and say, I'd really like to do, cardiovascular research. And I was like, well, that's kind of tough to do as an 18-year-old just new into college student, mainly because a lot of the medical research is being done by those med students that you're going to meet in a couple of weeks. They're the ones who are working out at Stritch. Now, every once in a while, you might even know somebody who is doing research out at Stritch in a medical setting, but that's not the norm, I think is a good way to say it. And if you really have that expectation, by all means, go for it. But I would also temper your expectations. Having said that, along with all the faculty members listed here, the research that you would do in these other environments is still extraordinarily valuable. Most of the time, almost all of the time, having talked to a number of directors, deans, whatever title they have of admissions of med schools. I used to be a pre-health advisor. I should probably let you all know that. But having talked to them quite a bit, it's the experience, not the subject matter, is a really big key. That if you're learning how to handle yourself in a lab, do the work in a very real world setting, that's what they like to see. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is. And that actually goes for, and I won't go into this part of it, but that even goes for research outside of the sciences. To show that you can do independent work, working with a faculty mentor, is a really good part of an application. It's much like having a job too. A lot of students, even now, I know we've tried to get the message out from time to time that even if you have a job like at a Starbucks, one of the things that the former director of admissions at Stritch, now he's some bigwig down in Florida. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, but he said, you know, the student who works at Starbucks and is employee of the month is more impressive than somebody that, you know, only does things on campus. But they're showing real world responsibility. You know, you're showing up on time, and not only that, you're doing a good job, not just, you know, schlepping coffee, but you've been recognized. You know, and thinking that, now don't go out there and beat your brains in to become the employee of the month at Starbucks. But it does show something, and that's what I think research really shows as well, outside of all the science part of it. You know, but you gain some really great experience. So you go through this list, you go back to that application and list those 3 people. Now, that is a lot. However, I would tell you to take another step, and go and talk to whomever you're interested in at their office hours. Read 1 or 2 of their articles, talk to them. So that way you're not just a name on a list, but you're a face. That's a lot better for your chances. It's just human nature. Again, in COVID time, I know that's, well, impossible. However, I think if you were to make a Zoom appointment, a Google Meet with somebody during their office hours, that would make you even more memorable, to be completely honest. But it's a great way to introduce yourself to them. And if you are in their class, interested in their research, it really kind of helps them get to know you. And hopefully they'll be able to offer you a position. That's the other thing. Getting a position right from the first time you speak to a professor is rare, because as you can imagine, Loyola's research opportunities are robust and very, very active. Students, many students want to do research. Many students are doing research. So having an opening in a lab right when you want it is a little tricky. But I wouldn't be dissuaded, and keep asking. I would also ask your peers and the professor if you could shadow at the lab. This is not the normal route, but I have heard of people who shadowed and then just kept going to the lab and became part of the lab. Again, that was a very laid back professor who didn't really mind. So I don't want you to make people upset, but you know, they were like, hey, can I keep, and they just kind of like, well, I was going to show my age by telling you a story about the Grateful Dead, but I won't. Anyway, so that's an important thing to take a look at and do. And it's a lot about what is still called those soft skills, those interpersonal skills. And in the age of COVID, that's really hard. I am not going to try and say that it's not, but it's still part of the process. And I encourage you to do that and interact with your faculty. And the faculty actually do like interacting with you. I know that may not always seem to be the case, but it really is true. They do enjoy student. They wouldn't have gone into this if they didn't, in some way, shape, or form, like students. And so, just to keep all of that in mind. Now, I want to show you a couple of other things, just in a couple minutes to show you, because you might want to do something outside of Loyola, which is fine, and look for different opportunities. So if I go, actually, let's see if I go back here to LUROP, which is the Loyola Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program Center, and go to this story down here, which is always somewhere on the page, and it's called Student Research Opportunities Center. Click on that link, and you will get to a sign-up form. And I try my best to update and load everybody who has signed up every Friday. So if you do it in the next couple of days. I should be able to do it. And once you sign up and then are approved, you will be able to log into what is the Student Opportunities Center. This is what you would see. And you can make your own interests, and we'll go ahead and do that really quick. And it's pretty simple. You just click on interest. You can scroll through here. They list the cities. Oh boy, I'm still in the 8th. Hang on. Here we go. We're just going to go with biology. I think if I click there, I have subscribed to biology. So now, every time I log in, I would see what's there for biology. Now, if you want to do it by location, you can add that too. And biology, Chicago. And there you go. Now, go back home, and it should start populating with, there we go, opportunities for doing biology work in and around Chicago. Also, there is, I think at the top of the screen, virtual opportunities. You can click here and it will give you things that are remote. And you can go ahead and look around, you go to their website, see the details, that sort of thing. Right now it's both just Bristol Myers Squibb, but you can also refine the search. Maybe you're not finding enough of what you want in bio, and look at biochemistry, add it to it, add chemistry, add just a whole long list of stuff so you hit as much as you can. And then really, if I hit view details, it tells you a little bit more about what it all is. Wow, full time. And that's just 2018. I have a feeling that's not been updated. But if you then go to their website, hopefully it's still live. There we go. It still says that. But anyway, that gives you an idea. And there's always stuff being updated on this that you can check out. You know, just make it a part of your weekly scroll through and see what's up and what's going on there. And again, now is actually kind of, stuff for the summer should really, well, the deadlines for a lot of stuff in the summer will start to pop up in January, February, March. So that's a really good time to start checking that stuff out. And if last thing I want to talk to you about, and I would, if possible, I think I did it last year, maybe it was the year before, but to tell you more about applying for a fellowship come the spring, because applying, you don't really want to hit the application button now. It's okay because it'll pop up, which is great. And it is again, very simple locus-based database, like the biology one. But every November, December, we work with IT to update the application. So if you apply now, the chances are really good that nothing will happen. Like, your application's fine, it's there, we'll find it, cool. However, there are times that in the past that we hit the update and everybody who applied before January is poof, and start getting the calls about March 15th of, hey, I thought I applied. So I would wait before you start going through this process. The one thing that's especially true about applying for a fellowship is that you really do have to be established in a lab at least a little bit. Most of your faculty mentors will encourage you to apply because they get money if you get a fellowship. It's part of their research budget then. So if you have 6 or 7 fellows in your lab, you get $6,000 or $7,000 additional dollars to put towards your lab. And we could go over all that research budget and kind of stuff so another time. I think would be great when we're a little bit closer to the application time. But the fellowships are, I would say, a little competitive. They're not super competitive. The goal is to fund as many students as we can. However, that has gotten a little, as you probably all have heard, budgets at Loyola have been facing some troubles. In the case of research and fellowships and such things, for instance, the biology department did not have any fellowships for this current year. There's the biology summer research fellow and then the biology 2-year fellow, and they just stopped the process when we went into lockdown. And that is about 20 fellowships. So that's a pretty sizable number of people who were not funded. And the Mulcahy reduced their number by a significant amount. So far, the provost, the one that I oversee personally, has not been asked to reduce our numbers, which is great. I hope that come January, that is still the case. But the bad side of it is that it does make it a little bit more selective, competitive, whichever word you want to use. But I would still encourage you, if you are doing research in a lab already, strictly as a volunteer, look into applying to the fellowship. Last thing I want to share, and then I will open it up to any questions that you might have. If you haven't started doing this process, looking into this, that sort of thing, I am going to be teaching a Univ 102 course in the spring, and simply called Introduction to Research. It is going to be a very overall, overreaching look at research. The goal is that in the 14 weeks, it will be going from I want to research X to a concrete proposal by the end of the time. That is the goal of the course. So we go from step 1 to hopefully having something ready to go and propose either to like a faculty member or to get funding, something of that nature. That's the idea. So I'm gonna actually have people buy a very useful book that I used when I was in graduate school, called The Craft of Research. Yes, it is as thrilling as the title sounds. I have an older book that I got in graduate school the first time around back in the 90s that is incredibly dated. However, anytime I start a big project, research and writing in history, and this is, I think, sorry, I should have looked it up before. 1974, yes. However, the print, you don't have to buy this. I don't even think you could, maybe on eBay. But it's that idea of the nuts and bolts of creating a research project from the ground up. That's what I hope to share with everybody come the spring. And it's going to be Univ 102, Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. And with that, any questions? Oh, I should stop sharing my screen now.
Hi, Dr. Kaufmann. Could you explain a bit more about research in other departments? Is it just limited to biology, or are there other types of research?
Excellent question. No, it is not limited to biology. Chemistry, for instance, has a similar web design as the biology department, but they don't have a portal that you sign into. You basically just go and you can see what everybody's doing research on, and you can contact them that way. Something worth noting, biology is a good example. Chemistry is a good example. Physics, not a lot of folks do research in physics, but it's there. But those three departments do not have very large graduate programs. They don't offer PhDs. So a lot of the research that needs to be done on campus, the role falls to undergraduates. That's one of the really good perks of being at Loyola for pre-med, is that the opportunities for research are greater than at a lot of other schools. The other very popular department where neuroscience falls under is psychology. There is a lot of research being done in psychology with human subjects, so that's always an appeal as well. But the neuroscience labs folks really seem to find a great deal of inspiration from working in those labs. So that's something to think about too. And then, as I mentioned, if you decide you really would rather do, you know, research in history or philosophy or any other major or school, like School of Social Work, things of that nature, those all look good heading into med school. They would not hurt your application. So that's just something to consider as well.
There was something that I wanted to clarify. So I was looking for research, and a lot of people told me that as long as you have one research project under your belt, like, you're fine. But like, what if someone has more? What if they're doing research in multiple disciplines? Would that help them, or would it not really matter as much?
I would say it probably wouldn't matter that much. I think, especially in the sciences, people tend to get into a project and stay. I think part of it is because one of the great misconceptions about research is that it's this lonely endeavor where you are in the lab and you have no contact with the outside world. And anybody who's doing research, at least at Loyola, can tell you that's not really the case. The research lab teams are quite the community, and really strong professional relationships and personal relationships are developed there that really affect people, and they want to stay on the project too. There's something about that too of, you know, you planned on doing research for a year, let's say, with Dr. Kanzog, and you're like, but man, I really want to keep working at this. One of the, I mean, I want you all to achieve your dreams of going to med school and becoming fantastic physicians and saving the world. I really do. However, there is something really special about somebody who changes that narrative in their life, that they thought, man, I'm going to be a doctor, and they get exposed to academic research, and they're like, nope, this is it. And that's really inspiring. It means that the college experience is still working. So that's always good. And the other thing, I don't think it would be bad. Let's say that you're like, but I'm doing research in Dr. Pickett's lab and it's going great, but I really, really want to investigate the foundations of the baseball mitt. Hey, if you got the time, knock yourself out. It's fascinating to see how that came about. And again, it's not going to hurt. The only thing I would say as a pre-health advisor, to put that hat back on really quick, just make sure the stuff that you get grades on stays in the forefront of your mind. Grades are still important. But yeah, I mean, you got a really nice library, even virtually, that you can do research at all the time. So I would highly, highly recommend it. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, totally. I have another question, actually, something that I wanted to say. I'm doing this research with University of Chicago, and it's like, I'm talking to these patients and kind of doing their interviews. So it's a clinical, like patient interaction, but also research. But I was wondering how much that's going to help me. It's all virtual, which is good, but it's like an 8 hours per week commitment.
I think that sounds fantastic. Matter of fact, it seems like there's quite a few people who are doing similar research, especially around COVID. I think that's that's going to be great for your future prospects. That sounds like a fascinating project. So yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
I think there was a question in the chat too about fire.
I'm an old man. I don't know about chats. I don't know how fire is going to work this year, unfortunately. I'm trying to remember if it has been, if the funding has come back. I thought it had for the next couple of years. I thought it got because I know it's a national grant. So I don't know 100% how that's gonna work this year, unfortunately. I'll try and dig around though. Now I want to find out. So it hadn't been on my radar. So thanks.
I had
Thank
a
you.
question. Oh, yes. But I had a question actually, since within research itself, there's always the concept of getting published, having your name on the publication. In your experience in seeing, especially in the pre-health advising perspective, how important is that? How does it put certain applicants above others in the context of research, or is that just kind of like a title to have?
I think again, it doesn't hurt. And and at the end of the day, it is pretty impressive as an undergraduate, even if you're listed as like the 5th author. It's still pretty cool to be able to stake a claim on something like that. And I think it does impress admissions. Is it going to, the tricky thing about admissions in med school is that once you use the great big methods to limit your pool, then everybody's impressive, For instance, I think the number of applicants that Loyola gets is still around 18,000 for about 180 seats. My number's still around correct? It's been a while. So, the first thing is grades and GPA. And if you don't fall within a certain place in that, you're going to be out of the pool quick, which may take you down to what, 12,000, right? That you can look at as an admissions person and be like, got it. MCAT's going to be the next thing. It's going to be a pretty wide range because you don't want to leave too many people out, but still people apply that have fell well outside of that range. That gets you down to another. Let's say it gets you down to 5,000, right? Of really bright, really good students. That is a job I don't envy, of trying to figure that out over the course of the next 6-7 months. Yeah, you have your interviews. Yeah, you have, and that's a key part. That's a whole other discussion you guys can have with the pre-health folks. But then it does come into, so, okay, this student did this. And you are comparing. It's a tough process, man. So having a publication under your belt is gonna look good. It's gonna help. Is it necessary? No. There's other means that you can impress an admissions committee for sure. But it's not. It's definitely, again, not going to hurt. It definitely is going to look good. And yeah, that's, I think, the best answer for that.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I have a couple questions that are like related to each other. So like
Sure.
you mentioned about like to check when there's a lab opening. How do you know when there's a lab opening? When should you be applying for like research next semester, and how is research like operating for the next semester given COVID?
That is something to talk to the folks doing the research. There are some cases where students are allowed to be on campus to do research. I think it's very limited right now. as you can guess. As far as when an opening opens up and things like that, faculty tend to share that information with students. They generally don't make big announcements. So that's one of the keys of going going to their office and talking to them after class. Building that relationship helps. The other thing about that too is doing well in their class. I know that may sound again a little bit on the petty side, but it helps. If you get like a D in their class, they're probably not going to think you can do research in their lab. But it doesn't also, you don't have to be, top of the class either. Again, showing that interest is really what's important. And there's a lot more turnover as the year ends and we come into the next year as seniors graduate and moving along that way. It is, if for the first years in this meeting, it is very hard to get into a lab second semester of your first year, but a number of sophomores do manage to get in. And a lot of times you'll have to be on a volunteer basis. Funding generally comes limited sophomore year, junior year quite a bit, senior year quite a bit. So there is a certain amount of kind of being in the right spot at the right time as far as getting that research position. But letting the, not just through the portal, again, it's really helpful and it helps them stay organized. But it's really helpful to your own cause to work on that relationship. And again, it's not the easiest thing to do by no stretch of the imagination. Again, in COVID, it's really difficult for sure. But that's kind of how it works. It is one of those, if you go to the Career Service Center, they'll talk, or what do they call themselves now? Career Services. They will talk about soft skills and all that kind of stuff and how important that is to whatever you do in your coming future. So that's what I would really key on. If you know somebody that you really like a professor that you really like, I would strike up that conversation because again, that list is pretty long. Most of the faculty are doing research. And I think even if you don't particularly like what they do in their research, like Jen Marish works with fruit flies and you're like, I could give, a hoot about fruit flies, but Jen's really cool. I would work with, and I know it sounds kind of weird, but I would cultivate, that's a better word, that relationship with Dr. Marish, because you're going to like working with her regardless of, fruit fly parts or not. So that's what I suggest. I see something else in the chat. Hang on. What's happening? Aha. The best thing to do for freshmen, well, hang on. A lot of the current research projects currently happening are covering topics classes freshmen haven't taken yet. What do you think is the best thing to do for freshmen? Excellent question. I think showing an interest is okay, going beyond what is being taught in the classes you're at. However, and this is, again, unprecedented times. It's still important in that first year to establish your academic performance and really focus on that. And normally I'd say, joining a group like AMSA is great. Getting to know people, exploring Loyola for what it is, and enjoying that aspect of it, kind of dipping your toe into extracurriculars and other things is really what you should be doing as a freshman. I think that's the best thing for it. And again, I think if even in the large lecture halls for Bio 101 and 102, or if you AP'd out of that in your other courses, again, just talking to the professors. And I mean, that's another good thing too. You may not like your Bio 251 professor. That's okay. You don't have to do research with them. But hopefully you like somebody in the department, because that would really suck. So you can look at it that way. But I would really explore, you know, a variety of things at Loyola. And if you can, maybe even shadow at that, like I mentioned, shadowing an upperclassman in a lab, you might really find something you like. So that would be, I think, a worthwhile thing to do too. And of course, take my course in the spring. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, and actually, adding on to that, this was something a professor once told me, that the bio professors talk a lot amongst themselves. Like, say, Dr. Burns receives an applicant, he'll ask around, like, "Hey, what do you guys think of this student? What was your experience of them in your class?" And so, it might not seem important, I guess, in certain cases, to go and cultivate a relationship with a professor that you might not be doing research with, but it's all part of that networking and soft skills that Dr. Kaufmann mentioned.
Yes, and that is actually kind of illegal because of FERPA, but it still happens. And another tip on that, with to piggyback off of your piggybacking, that goes for everybody in the bio department too. The admin staff, the lab staff, believe it or not, they know you. And if you treat them poorly, for instance, like Virginia, and I'm blanking on her last name, but if you treat them poorly, that's going to get back to faculty members. Believe me, that is the case. And that's really, again, back to those soft skills. Treat everybody. That's a good rule in life. Treat everybody good, and you will have a much better chance and experience. So, yeah. I think that's it.